The Cockpit Voice Recorder was completely overwritten. There is nothing on the Cockpit Voice Recorder. Cockpit Voice Recorders aren't just convenient for the NTSB to use in investigations or the FAA to use in investigations. They are critical to helping us accurately pinpoint what was going on. And it's key to safety. For Alaska Airlines, they want to know affirmatively what was occurring in the cockpit. Anybody who learns how to fly is taught aviate, navigate, communicate. Communication is key. Why? Because the flight crew on the flight deck do not have situational awareness to what is going on in the back. They need to know what's going on in the cabin, so that communication needs to occur. They have to know how quickly they need to land. And if that communication is not recorded, that is unfortunately a loss for us. So the survival factors team also looked at the exterior of the aircraft and verified that there is no structural damage to the aircraft. Again, I want to repeat, no structural damage to the aircraft. That damage on the inside, that's just interior paneling, trim. It has nothing to do with the structure of the aircraft and airframe itself. The Cockpit Voice Recorder was completely overwritten. There is nothing on the Cockpit Voice Recorder. Now, the Emergency Operations Center at this point was being established pretty rapidly by Alaska. There was a lot going on the flight deck and on the plane. It's a very chaotic event. The circuit breaker for the CVR was not pulled. The maintenance team went out to get it, but it was right at about the 2-hour mark, and it was completely overwritten. At 2 hours, it re-records over it, so we have nothing from the CVR. I want to focus on that for a second. Since 2018, we've done 10 investigations where the CVR was overwritten. 4 of those were recent runway incursions. We have this event, and back in 2018, there was a very significant near miss with an Air Canada plane that almost landed on a taxiway at San Francisco International Airport. On that taxiway were 4 airplanes with a combined total of about 1,000 people. The Air Canada plane came within 60 feet of coming right down on one of those airplanes that had passengers on it before it began to perform a go-around. The CVR was completely overwritten. The NTSB has many times talked about the need to increase the time on CVRs from 2 hours to 25 hours, which is consistent with Europe and many other countries. Now, the FAA, thankfully, has taken some recent action to issue a notice of proposed rulemaking to extend CVR time from 2 hours to 25 hours, but only on newly manufactured aircraft. So it would not affect this aircraft. It can be, you can easily install a different cockpit voice recorder and increase the time from 2 hours to 25 hours. The planes that are in service now can have a life of 40, 50 years. So what that notice of proposed rulemaking is doing is saying everything out there now that can be out there in service for 40 to 50 years will not have 25-hour CVR, but anything that will be manufactured in the future would have 25-hour CVRs. Cockpit voice recorders aren't just convenient for the NTSB to use in investigations or the FAA to use in investigations. They are critical to helping us accurately pinpoint what was going on. And it's key to safety. For Alaska Airlines, they want to know affirmatively what was occurring in the cockpit. Anybody who learns how to fly is taught aviate, navigate, communicate. Communication is key. Why? Because the flight crew on the flight deck do not have situational awareness to what is going on in the back. They need to know what's going on in the cabin, so that communication needs to occur. They have to know how quickly they need to land. And if that communication is not recorded, that is unfortunately a loss for us, and a loss for FAA, and a loss for safety, because that information is key, not just for our investigation, but for improving aviation safety. So I'm calling on the FAA to change the rulemaking. You have a notice of proposed rulemaking out right now. We are making comments to that rulemaking. We are calling for 25-hour CVRs in not just new aircraft, but retrofitting aircraft. And if FAA won't do it, we hope Congress will take action in the FAA reauthorization bill to ensure that it does. I cannot emphasize enough how important that is for safety.